About why we're in Syria. You ever wonder why we're in Syria? It's there because we're trying to help people. I'm here with Robert Yesamura, Hank Thompson. We're going to talk about Syria. Robert F. Kennedy Jr., he wrote an article. We covered some of it that appeared in the Politico. This is also over at Echo Watch, which is even a longer version of that story. And there's some stuff that we left out I want to talk about. So what are we doing in Syria, right? So what America doesn't know is that the CIA, at our behest, has been toppling governments in the Mideast left and right, trying to all the time since the 40s. This is true. Iran, Syria, Jordan, Afghanistan, all of them. We've been had our fingers in. We want to control it. And Robert Kennedy says, while the compliant American press parrots the narrative that our military support for the Syrian insurgency is purely humanitarian, many Syrians see the present crisis as just another proxy war over pipelines and geopolitics. What? A pipeline? I've never once heard Rachel Maddow or Brian Williams mention a pipeline. And that's why we're in Syria. Did you ever hear that, Hank? No. You ever hear anybody mention that, a pipeline?
No, not a lot of pipeline talk on Brian
about
Williams.
What we're doing in Syria? No. How about you, Robert? You ever hear them talk about a pipeline?
I haven't heard them talk about anything in terms of Syria that explain what the hell's going on.
No, it's just that there's Assad
they just say
bad,
Assad is bad,
and ISIS cuts
is
people's
bad,
heads off,
and Russia's there, and they're
Russia's
bad.
there, and we're going to fix it.
Mosul.
And Mosul.
A lot of people think the Syrian war started in 2011 with the Arab Spring, but instead it really began in 2000. Was it Ralph Nader? No. It was when Qatar proposed to construct a $10 billion, 1,500-kilometer pipeline through Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Syria, and Turkey. So now this has been going on for not just since 2000. In fact, he points out that the Bruce Lovett report, which is from the 50s, pointed out that when the CIA keeps intervening, that this is antithetical to American values, and it has compromised America's international leadership and moral authority without the knowledge of the American people. So like when the CIA overthrew the Iran government, tried to overthrow the Syrian government, the people on the ground know this stuff, but we don't know it here in America. So they know that. And the report, this is a report from our own government, the report blamed the CIA for the rampant anti-Americanism that was mysteriously taking root in the many countries in the world today. So it wasn't that they hate our freedom or our liberty. This is even back in the 50s. It was rampant anti-American was because of the CIA effing with other people's governments in the Middle East, all for war, and because they were afraid of Arab nationalism. Right? They saw that as fighting. We're going to fight Marxism, so we're going to fight Arab nationalism. And whenever an Arab country wanted to keep their own oil reserves for their own people, that meant we had to go stop that. Right? So here's the pipeline that he's talking about, by the way. So look at this. So here's the pipeline starting at Qatar. So this is by the way, this is natural gas. Right. So Saudi Arabia and Iran, they have the largest natural gas deposit in the world, and so Qatar wants to take it through Jordan. See, we go Saudi Arabia, Jordan, through Syria, through Turkey. So they're on board. Jordan's on board. Turkey's on board. Guess who's not on board? Syria. And there's the problem. So now here's the other pipeline. Comes from Iran. These are the competing pipelines. Shia, Sunni. Okay? Just so you know. And Russia is against this one. They don't want this one. Russia is against it because Russia gives a lot. They're in bed with
actually,
Iran.
Russia doesn't want either.
Right. But if they were going to have one, the Russians would lead. Well, let's get into it. Because Robert Kennedy says, of course, the Russians who sell 70% of their gas exports to Europe viewed the Qatar-Turkey pipeline as an existential threat. This is to your point, Robert. In Putin's view, the Qatar pipeline is a NATO plot to change the status quo, deprive Russia of its only foothold in the Middle East, strangle the Russian economy, and end Russian leverage in the European energy market. Mm-hmm. Well, they never tell you this stuff. Like, I mean, you have to seek this information out. It's out there, but you have to. They never say it like so it gets into the consciousness of the American people. They don't ever do that. In 2009, Assad announced that he would refuse to sign the agreement to allow the pipeline to run through Syria to protect the interests of our Russian ally. What happened then when he tells the United States and Saudi Arabia that I'm not going to let you have your pipeline? What do you think happened? Well, at that very moment that Assad rejected the pipeline, military and intelligence planners quickly arrived at a consensus that fomenting a Sunni uprising in Syria would be a good thing. At that very moment, they decided to, hey, let's overthrow this guy. According to Cy Hirsch, before the war started, Assad was moving to liberalize the country. Yeah, so they weren't going towards theocracy or fundamentalism. Syria was actually, again, the way Iran was before we messed it up, a secular democracy, right? So he was moving that way. According to him, he said they had internet and newspapers and ATM machines, and Assad wanted to move toward the West. After 9/11, get this, Robert, Assad gave thousands of invaluable files to the CIA on jihadist radicals, who he considered a mutual enemy.
Who he still does.
Yes, he does. We consider ISIS an enemy. So does Assad. Except we consider Assad an enemy, too. I say bomb them both, which is what we're doing. All right, ready? On September 4th, get this. Get this, Robert. On September 4th, 2013, Secretary of State John Kerry told a congressional hearing that the Sunni kingdoms, meaning like Saudi Arabia, Qatar, had offered to foot the bill for a U.S. invasion of Syria to oust Assad. This is in 2013. Kerry told a congressional hearing. I never heard this reported. Did you hear this reported? He said, in fact, some of them, this is according to Kerry, in fact, some of them had said that if some of them, meaning the Arab states, the Sunni Arab states, meaning Qatar, Saudi Arabia, some of them had said that if the United States is prepared to go do the whole thing, the way we've done it previously in other places, Iraq, they'll carry the cost.
Color me not shocked.
So that's what this is all about. Oil, a pipeline. This isn't about John Kerry pretending to be upset that they're bombing hospitals or using chemical weapons, and that's why we got to go in there. It's all about oil. And Saudi Arabia using the American dollar as their oil-based price, right? We don't have the dollar's no longer backed by gold. It's backed by Saudi Arabian oil. Yes. So Kerry reiterated to that offer that the Saudis and the Qatar, the Sunni Arab states had made to Representative Ileana Ros-Lehtinen, if that's how you say her name, quote, with respect to the Arab countries offering to bear the cost of an American invasion to topple Assad, the answer is profoundly yes, they have. The offer is on the table. That's what Kerry told somebody. John Kerry, Secretary of State. So in 2011, the U.S. joined France, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, and England to form the Friends of Syria coalition. Boy, is that Orwellian.
That's a really creepy sounding thing, man. That sounds like the worst sewing circle ever.
In 2011, we founded the Friends of Syria coalition, which formally demanded the removal of Assad. The CIA then provided $6 million to Barata, a British TV channel, to produce pieces and treating Assad, so for propaganda. Saudi intelligence documents published by WikiLeaks show that by 2012, Turkey, Qatar, and Saudi Arabia were arming, training, and funding radical jihadist Sunni fighters from Syria, Iraq, and elsewhere to overthrow Assad. So that means all of our allies in the Mideast were funding the people we claim to be fighting. ISIS, cutting people's heads off, radical Islamic jihadists. Those people, the guy who's up, those people, our friends in the Mideast are funding. So they're funding our enemies. Our friends are friends with our enemies. The idea of fomenting a Sunni-Shia civil war to weaken the Syrian and Iranian regimes so as to maintain control of the region's petrochemical supplies was not a novel notion in the Pentagon lexicon. Really? This wasn't the first time they'd thought of it? No, in fact, a damning 2008 Pentagon funded RAND report proposed a precise blueprint for what was about to happen. The report observes that control of the Persian Gulf oil and gas deposits will remain, for the U.S., a strategic priority that will interact strongly with that of prosecuting the long war. Ugh. In 2008, they said this. The long war. The long war to overthrow the uncooperative Bashar Assad was a feasible path to achieving the shared objective of completing the Qatar-Turkey gas link. So there's more to this. We'll cover it tomorrow. There's a lot more to this. We've covered some yesterday, covering this today.
And by the way, let me just say, so I'm more moderate than you are. I'm not conspiracy-minded. None of this I don't believe. I believe every single thing about this, and I'll tell you why. Because it's been American foreign policy since 1940.
Yeah, since the World War, to do this.
Like, to do things like this. Nothing about this surprise. Matter of fact, this actually makes more sense as an explanation for most of what's been going on in the Middle East over the last 10 years than anything I've ever heard. I don't doubt any of this for a second.
This is, of course, what's going on.
No, it's freedom. They want democracy.
They hate us for our freedom.
They hate us because we have fun sports games. All right,
They hate us because we have Coca-Cola.
Yeah, 3 flavors of Pepsi. That's what it's all about.
And this doesn't undercut or change the fact, like, you know, Assad's a pretty shitty guy.
Yeah, it doesn't.
Iran's pretty shitty state.
Because they're a theocracy, because we made it that way.
Right. Like, it doesn't change those things, but it shows, like, yeah, because we're contributing to it. We are making things worse.
Yes.
We have made, you know, and there have been many, many turning points in the modern Middle East in which they could have just started developing on their own. And
they were.
We have fucked it up.
Well, Iran
every
was
single.
Iran was a. They had an elected
democracy.
First democracy, and
Mossadegh
is how you say it. He wanted to export American style democracy across the Middle East, and they were like, no. America was like, no. We have to control it, and that's Arab nationalism, and that's Marxism, and that's not good. And so that's why they stopped all that, because those guys, like Mossadegh, wanted to keep the oil for his people instead of giving it to BP. And that's why they overthrew him. And then that's when they installed the Shah of Iran as the American puppet, who then used horrible right-wing strongman tactics against his own people for 20 years. And that led us to get the Ayatollah Khomeini, which we have now, which has been a blight on America for the last, since 35 years or 40 years. So that's what happened. Every time we do something, it blows up in our face. Hey, we're going to go fix Iraq. Look what happened. The exact opposite of what we wanted to have happen happened. We empowered Iran in the Middle East. And so what are we doing in Syria right now? It's all about oil, and it's all about control of this, not oil, gas pipeline. It's all about control of that. So this is great. We're going to do more of it. Don't ever believe anything your government tells you about this. John Kerry is lying about this. Every time he goes on TV, he's lying about it. Barack Obama is lying about it. Hillary Clinton is lying about it. And no matter who talks about this in the government, they're lying. So whenever John Kerry comes out and says something, just don't believe it on its face.